Hello, everyone. My name is Jenny Burak, and I'm an astrologer and an energy healer. I have worked with Metatron since I was a very young girl. I did take a very long break, I should say, but I've always working with him. But I've always had a relationship with him. I knew him as the Holy Spirit. It took me many, many years, yes, decades, to say, to put together that the being that I saw as a little girl was the same being that I called the Holy Spirit. Because, you know, when you grow up in the church, and for those of you, a lot of you I know have grown up in the evangelical church, I could feel, and I don't know, I just took it for granted that everyone felt that. I don't know now. When I think about it, I'm like, maybe everyone didn't feel like as we're singing, you know, to the Holy Spirit, you would feel that wind. It felt like wind would like sweep through the church, and I could almost watch it and where it was going over all of us as we were singing. That's the same guy that we call Metatron. He's just a really big guy. But when I do the video I'm going to do about him coming up, then I'll go more into that and how we see him in different ways, each of us. I mean, I've seen in his angelic form, he has talked to me. We were outside, so he was, I don't know, 20 feet, maybe 25 feet. But, you know, he also, he said he also fits into very small chairs because, you know, I used to sit up and talk to him at night while I was having a glass of wine after the kids went to bed. And he was always, I just laughed because, you know, his presence is so large, but he was in a very small club chair in my family room for that. So that's just a little background for all of you who are new, who haven't heard me explain. So I Metatron earlier today. I was on the phone with a friend, and he said to me, ask me if it would be wise for you to disable comments for the video. And so I said, oh, would it be wise of me to disable the comments? And he suggested that, yes, I should disable the comments for this video. Just because he said, you know, you just don't need to have any anyone lashing out in anger. So I was a little bit nervous. It's now 11 o'clock at night by the time I'm getting to it. But I had a lot to do, and it's later in the week because my daughter had her surgery that I talked about a few weeks ago. We did that this week, and so I had to have days for that. Thank you to everyone who adjusted schedules so that I could get that done this week. I appreciate that. So we have our new moon solar eclipse happening at 0 degrees of Cancer or 30 degrees of Gemini, depending on how you see that. That's one of the critical degrees when we have planets or points there in our chart. That's very significant. And so this is very significant. And so we're going to talk about what that means to us individually and collectively. I want to just mention that happens on the 21st. It's 7:41 a.m. in London, 4:41 p.m. in Sydney, and 1:41 a.m. in Chicago. And so the solstice is the 20th at, it's like, hang on, I got to do math. About 16 hours difference. So I did not do another chart. And, you know, it's just, I find it significant that this is in the Northern Hemisphere anyway, when it's the celebration of the sun, it's summertime, and within 16 hours, the sun is cut out. The eclipse will only be visible in Africa and Asia, and it's what's called an annular eclipse. So the moon is not going to completely blot out the sun. You'll see the sun like a ring around the moon if you're in those areas. I know some of you are in Asia and South Africa too. So yeah, so you guys will get to see that. So I have so many charts because I wanted to pull a chart for the United States in relation to the eclipse as well. But we're going to talk about what this is for us, what it means individually first. Okay, so if you look there at the sun and moon, they're just at that cusp between Gemini and Cancer. The north node is at the true node is at 29 degrees of Gemini, and then the sun and moon are together at 0 degrees of Cancer, and at the first degree of Cancer is the asteroid Heimdall. Heimdall means the guard of the bridge between heaven and earth. And it's interesting in the last video, that's what I associate that asteroid with. He calls it his signature asteroid. I don't like to just assign like one thing, but so we say it's his signature asteroid. But I wanted to say that in the last video that I made, I did not put the asteroid Chaos in. He had me do it the video before that, and I never mentioned it. He didn't bring it up then when I was talking in the video. But that June 5th, what happened on June 5th, Heimdall and the asteroid Chaos were at the same degree. And Chaos in our chart, individually, it speaks to something that we're working through, overcoming. That's a lot of work that could be like a lifetime that it takes for us to work on it. And so it has that significance in the individual charts. But I just want to point out that, because I see like a lot of, I hear a lot of people sometimes say that like spirit is taking a back seat. Okay, you're always connected to the creator intrinsically, is what Metatron is saying. They're never like not there, but they do allow, he's saying, things to play out as they will at times, and this is one of those times. And when we're looking at this at an individual level, we're thinking about, like, it's going to be about what you were taught as a child and what you believe still to be true, and some aspect of you believes to be true that is not true about you, that has become like a pattern that you were taught to live out. The Sabian symbol, because of it being in Cancer, we look to the moon, and this is the moon sign. At 0 degrees of Cancer, the Sabian symbol is a sailor lowers an old flag and raises a new one. And flags on ships identify who they are. Is this, a pirate ship? Or what, the flag is the symbol of the country that they belong to. And so this is about our identity and what it is that we believe that we are and what it is that we're capable of doing. Because the programs that we inherit, the stories of the fathers that are passed down through the generations, and what we're taught just 0 to age 7, that we pick up subconsciously about who it is that we are. It's time now for us to move past those patterns, to raise a new flag, to come up with a new identity. And I know he spoke to a lot of this in the last video as well. So I want to just point out, it looks like I need some new ink because that green line isn't looking very green. But if from the moon and the sun, if you follow that green line back down to Saturn there, Saturn is at 0 degrees of Aquarius now. So he is the only planet that is directly making contact with this sun-moon configuration, this new moon. And of course, Saturn, we look at as, the father and what we inherit from like familial patterns that come through. He's saying it's like a dynasty kind of energy. And so, of course, Aquarius relates to freedom, breaking free of those patterns. Saturn is the traditional ruler. The modern ruler of Aquarius is Uranus, but Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius, so he's not so out of place there. He's for innovation and furthering humanity as well. He's not like such a bad guy. And so because he's retrograde right now, we're looking at the past. The moon also, and Cancer is also associated with our past. Like I said, familial patterns, things that are passed down, are inherited. That goes along with that. And Cancer ultimately is about the feeling of being at home feeling safe, belonging. And traditionally, we get those feelings of belonging and feeling like we're safe and we're at home and being nurtured from our mother. And for a lot of people, and it sometimes is the father or the grandmother, but for a lot of us, we were raised by an authority figure who wasn't able to, for whatever reason, we chose to come in and have an experience with the mother who wasn't nurturing and kind and didn't engender feelings of being safe and at home. Maybe we were criticized constantly. Maybe, it was like if you moved wrong, you were going to get smacked. There's all different ways that plays out when an adult is unhappy and then has a child. It can just compound their unhappiness. So whatever the situation is, this is a time when he's saying it's time to break the pattern. We're breaking the pattern of that thinking and that cycle and that story that we don't belong, that we're disconnected. We don't have a feeling of connection. There's no root there. Our roots, when we are raised like that and we are, in an environment of fear, even if it's just that we're going to be constantly criticized, we close up the root chakra. And a lot of people don't even realize that their root chakra is completely closed because that's their normal. That's the way that it's always been. I was sharing with a client this week that when I got that anonymous phone call from Bali, I don't know, what was that? That was probably almost a year ago now. That someone called from Bali and didn't know who I was, but he said, the council gave me your phone number and told me to tell you. It was about my root chakra. And it was really helpful to have that information from a complete stranger. It's like if they were trying to show me, and so I can share with you that when it's time for us to get a message, that message is going to come through. Nothing can stop that message from coming through. So what we're doing now as adults is we're teaching the inner child that it's safe for her to, first of all, be completely in the body, or him to be completely in the body, and to allow ourselves a feeling of being at home and feeling protected and being safe. And that really comes through rewiring that cassette, that tape that's constantly running in the subconscious mind. And really, it's reprogramming the mind. And, anybody doing self-help, it doesn't have to be a spiritual practice. That really the key is our thinking, what we think of ourselves. The subconscious controls 90% of our choices. And if we have that program running that we're not good enough, that we're not measuring up, that we're going to screw it up somehow, because we were constantly getting nagged at and told like, oh, you can do it this way, do it that way, do it this way. And we just don't feel good about ourselves. And we're not, of course, going to be standing up and saying like, yeah, let me do it. Let me go for it. Nothing can stop me. We really need to train ourselves about who it is that we really are and what it is that we're capable of. And he's saying that he's speaking also to conditioned responses. And, when we're being advised by someone who we see as an authority figure, it's like allowing ourselves to be open and to hear advice and opinions of others. Instead of worrying that hearing it as a criticism. A lot of times we can just automatically get defensive, even if we don't say anything. We kind of just shut it off, like I'm not listening to you, because we're used to advice coming as criticism. And so really being open and allowing ourselves, he's saying, to be led by our soul. And following, he's talking about different signs coming in and showing us like our options and opportunities and the choices that we have before us right now, so that we can follow the breadcrumbs and listen to the higher self. And part of the reason that a lot of people say like I can't hear the angels is just because they're talking to us all the time. They are always talking to us. It's just that a lot of times we don't recognize their voices, and that can be part of those programs that we're not important enough. Who's going to take the time to do that with us? So when you're completely in your body and you feel safe and the root chakra is open, that's a much better space to be in order to hear from the higher vibrations as well. Because otherwise, we're what happens when we're ungrounded, and in this energy with everything that's going on with Neptune, very easy to be ungrounded right now. But when we're ungrounded, we tend to hear a lot of like just noise in the ethers, and we also tend to get caught up in the mind. And another thing that he was pointing out to me, hang on, sorry, my mouth is so dry. One other thing that he was pointing out to me was that in order to quiet the mind, it's important that we're spending time doing physical exercise every day, even if it's just stretching, even if you can only stretch. One of the ways that we show the inner child that he or she is important is spending time, paying time and attention to her, and that really is demonstrated in the physical body, how we treat our physical body. So if you can set aside an hour a day to get in meditation, stretching, or whatever exercise, walking, some physical activity to raise your endorphins, and connect in to, he's saying that it improves our mood, and then we're more likely to be able to discern when we're hearing voices from on high, is what he's saying. So that's one of the other things with Mercury is making an aspect with Uranus, which it's called a sextile. And so part of that is going to be about having a choice in our thinking. What is it that we're listening to? Is it the higher octave that it's either love or fear? Everything comes from love or fear. And so are we choosing to hear and to listen to love? Or are we hearing fear in our subconscious? And then also because Cancer also relates to the physical body, Taurus is the physical body. And so when we look at Uranus in Taurus and then Mercury in Cancer, anything that might come about anytime there's an eclipse, with physical symptoms, don't delay. Contact the doctor, whoever you go to, whatever health professional you choose. But that is important with this energy. Not to be jumping into some kind of exercise plan that we're not ready for either. But like slow stretching, can't go wrong with that. And I want to mention that Venus will finish her retrograde on the 25th. Mercury went into shadow on the 2nd of June, and he will move retrograde on the 18th. So he begins his retrograde before this eclipse, but he actually falls on the fixed star Sirius, which relates to the energy of Isis at the time of the eclipse. So that's significant too. And now when I'm looking at that, I'm wondering if there will be some sort of Earth event. So, I mean, it's always possible with everything happening with Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto. We're kind of set up for it anyway with an Earth event, like, as in physical, like land, maybe not, and not involving water. But then when I look at this, I wonder if maybe there could be something like that showing up here. Remember, this is a new moon eclipse, and new moons take about 2 years to die out, but this energy will take longer than that even. So, we don't know the date of it. I also felt like when I looked at what's happening in Pisces with Ceres and Nessus so close together, and then Neptune and Pisces, if maybe we could be looking at some sort of water. I know we had the contamination with the permafrost melting in Russia, and there was, those I don't remember. Well, they're not going to probably tell us exactly how many tons, But I know that they're saying 20,000 tons of oil that was leaked into the rivers there. And Sandalphon had mentioned that in a video. But but yeah, so this is about when we're looking at this astrology and the ties to Saturn, releasing ancestral patterns and coming into a new way of thinking. And he's talking about, like putting some joy into it, emphasizing the joy, going after what it is that our heart desire is, and maybe not what the traditional, what we're like society would say or tradition would say is where we need to focus and where we need to go. And then also, what was it that you were? Yeah, and then just keeping a good sense of humor in general, as there's a lot of volatility in the air. He's saying, and a lot of tension still playing out, and will be for, well, how long? What do you want me to say? Okay, until further notice. So he's not giving me a time, but that's okay. So yeah, but yeah, really, like if there's anything you can do right now to spend an hour a day, and I know a lot of us have more going on with quarantine things than normal, and everybody's, a lot of people are starting to get back out there and get back to work. When we looking at this astrology too, I just want to mention Mars, of course, rules pandemics. He could be, while he's in Pisces, there could be some sort of mutation, but it's bothered me lately. And I know I talked about this in the last two videos about false, like nonsense going on. And one of the things is that every publication I've seen is talking about the second wave. There wasn't, like, we didn't take a break. There wasn't, the first wave was still going just because your state, the politicians wanted to reopen everything doesn't mean that the first wave was over. Some places were peaking as they reopened. And so now we have 19 or 20 states where numbers are climbing. It's nothing to do with increased testing. It's because they had not peaked and they started to reopen. You can't, like, I think Georgia closed for 2 weeks. And that's just not, that's not going to do a whole lot in a pandemic. Look at the Spanish flu. This isn't, the plagues and pandemics have been happening for a really, really long time. And, it's just like as we evolve as a species, we understand more about them and how to handle them. And he's saying respect them and understand that they have, like, obviously there's a reason that this is created. But when he's saying respect for them, he's talking about a healthy respect, meaning, like, you can't just say, like, oh, I'm immune to that. We're all, a lot of us could be asymptomatic and have it, and not have any symptoms and be passing it around. So, we'll see in the astrology. I'm just going to mention that it looks like sometime from August to November that there may be a resurgence of the virus. So we will wait and see what happens exactly, but it does seem in the astrology that that's likely. But, who knows? I mean, I don't think that they're, yeah, I'm not going to go into that. But I just also want to point out that in the fifth house of leaders, we've got the South Node and the Vertex. And then in the 10th house of the authority figures, Black Moon Lilith, Eris, the goddess of discord, and Uranus are all there. So authority figures and leaders, temperamental is what Metatron is adding to that. So, yeah. But otherwise, yeah, I think we've pretty much covered everything, right? Earth events, geopolitical stuff. But, our focus now is going to be like dedicating that healing to the inner child and coming into that sense of connection. I've mentioned before that a lot of clients of mine use the Wim Hof method for breath work. That's a great way to ground and to stay connected in your body, yoga. But any kind of stretching like that, or physical activity. And then, of course, the inner child really needs a creative outlet. You know, that fire in us, that energy of Mars and Aries that pushes us through the birth canal, that baby us, that Mars energy, it needs an outlet. And when it doesn't do anything, when nothing is happening with that fire, like with physical exercise or doing something using creativity in some way, part of us starts dying off. We stop looking at the world with eyes of wonder, and we forget all of the joy of life because the fire needs tending to, is what he's saying. So that is important with this energy as well. And I just wanted to, I don't know what you want me to. Okay, so I pulled the chart for the December 26th eclipse that we had. It was a new moon eclipse in Capricorn. And I said in that video that Mars was blind. Mars is in the 12th house. And, just above the ascendant in our 12th house, when something falls like that, that's our blind spot. And Mars is trine. So if you follow that the blue line that goes down to Neptune, over here is Neptune. And of course, that's the fog and where we can be deceived. Especially with Nessus that close. And then he is sextile the South Node and Jupiter. So, and that's a choice energy. But I said, I don't know, when I said that I was saying to them, like, how can 2020 like that, how can it be about vision when Mars can't see? And, Mars in Pisces right now, too. Has problems with vision, and we can get really confused easily. I know these last few days have been rough too. I made a little post about it on the community page to try to help everyone like through these energies, not easy energies that we've been working with. But when they said to me, hindsight is always 2020. When Metatron said that to me, I was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. Because, first of all, Mars, I don't think has spent this amount of time in Aries since like 1988. He's going to be there for over 6 months. Over 6 months, just a bit over 6 months. I mean, it's crazy that he's in a sign for that long. But, because, it takes him 2 years to get around, about 2 years to go around the whole zodiac. So this is the chart of the United States, and someone had asked me to run the chart in relation to the eclipse, and I felt like, that would be a good way to address everything that's happening here. I just want to say, first of all, and maybe we'll talk about that too, with what's happening with the astrology because of dreams. Whenever Neptune is having a lot of action, there's going to be a lot of dreams. I'm one of those people, and I'm blessed. I know I'm blessed that if I wake up and I don't remember what I was doing the night before, I know something's wrong. I always, remember very well, very clearly what it is that I'm doing. But when okay, I'm trying to say this I don't want to offend anyone. Okay, so last night, as I was waking up this morning, clear as a bell, I'm outside my body, and I'm looking at these, like, timelines, and I'm like, wait, which existence is it that Tom Cruise is still alive? I don't know why I was asking myself which existence. Well, I didn't know why I was asking, like, which existence is it that Tom Cruise is still alive. I'm not like a big, Tom, I mean, probably when I was 13 maybe, but, I'm not like a big Tom Cruise fan. It's not like he's even on the news or anything lately or has a movie out or anything like that. So, but this is why that happened. Because when you dream about a person, typically it's what you think of that person. If you and the person are doing this and this together, then it's typically like what your opinion is of that person that they could be like pointing out to us. And so I was thinking about it, and my personal opinion, it's my personal opinion. I feel like with Scientology, that L. Ron Hubbard got a little bit of knowledge and then he added like a whole bunch to it. You know what I mean? Because he's not, I don't know, I really don't know that much about it, but I know it's no bueno. But I don't know like the ins and outs of Scientology, but I know I heard something once and thought like, okay, but I know like the whole thing is no good that's my opinion. Excuse me. My mouth is so dry. I don't know why. But because it's cold outside, it's not even like it's a little bit warm out. But anyway, so I knew when I had that dream that what I was saying to myself is, where is it that people have a little bit and they're blowing things? Because I needed to know where to go back to. I don't know. So yeah, when you have a dream, like say you go to sleep and you believe in your heart for sure that there is a political figure who is to you a messiah and the savior of everything, and going to make sure that everybody that needs to go to jail goes to jail, and all that stuff. You may have a dream that is very similar to what it is that you believe. And there isn't a messiah. There isn't a political figure who is a messiah. When Jesus came to save the world, as he's saying, a living example of how to live the Christ consciousness, how to be the Christ consciousness. Love without conditions. That was his mantra. That was what he was demonstrating to us all, to help the humanity to evolve and to grow, to save us. Love without conditions. Love your neighbor. Love yourself. Love and forgive. Love and forgive. Forgive people as many times as it takes. He wasn't about division, or he asking anyone to make a sacrifice too, is what he's saying. But just to be a person of humility, who stands up for justice, who fights for the downtrodden, is what he's saying, and who takes up the righteous cause, is what he's saying. So he of course, so many people see him as the Messiah, and I mean it's fine. It's just that in our DNA, we have a story running that there is someone coming to save us, that there's something is going to happen. Like now it's that the earth is just going to magically, come into the quartzite state, and we're going to be walking on the new earth. And it doesn't work like that. It works within our hearts when we recognize that there is no division, that we are all the same, that we all share the same heritage and the same story, is what Metatron is saying. The story of humanity. That we've all lived through times of struggle. We've all been the outcast. We've all been the one who, like Jesus is saying, in the Sumerians, Sumerians is what he's saying. But, when the Good Samaritan, the story of the Good Samaritan, how they were at the time that he was alive and in the culture that he was living in, they were the ones who were treated as outcasts and less than, made to feel as though they were less than. And I spoke about it in the End of Corruption video, but I actually found more relating to the issue of slavery in the United States, and the fact that we were founded on the backs of others, and came to, our economy was run by what do you want me to say? Like the colonials the colonists, I don't know. But, because people get really defensive. So it isn't, I'm not saying, I know, of course, I've gone back and done past life work there. But, I've seen myself on both sides of that story. And it's a fact that the United States was founded with slaves built the Capitol, they built the White House, they built the Congress, they built the Plaza, they built Washington D.C. When you go there and you see all those white buildings, those were built by slaves. And so not every country can say that. I know slavery was around since mankind realized that they could, abuse power over another, but not every country was founded that way. And it's in our astrology, so I'm just going to show you again. You really have to watch the end of corruption video, though, to appreciate all of this. So if you look up in the 9th house at the top of the chart, you can see where it says chaos. Chaos and Archangel Gabriel and Neptune are all at the same degree and intercepted in the 9th house in Virgo. And there's Black Moon Lilith right there too. And that is about when we went to other countries and we pulled them out of those countries. And we said, oh, you're ours now. Now you're going to do the work for us. And that's what the council said, the illusion of supremacy. And chaos is what you work at and you work at and you work at. It doesn't just go away magically. After the Civil War, Grant gave a lot of land to slaves, to former slaves, to the ones who had been emancipated. And in a lot of communities, they were able to thrive. They really had like bustling businesses. But in the South, they did not like that. They only were rich. They only had plantations because they didn't do any of the work. They just had other people doing it for them. And so they didn't like that. They didn't like to see the people that they had owned thriving and doing well. And in a lot of these communities, they went in and they just massacred whole communities. There's used to be a town in northern Florida, which is now just a plaque on the side of the road because they killed so many of them. I can't remember the name of the town. But in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that was another example of where they just went in and they just killed them all. And I've lived my whole life hearing stories of racism and abuse. I was raised by an ultra-conservative Trump supporter and a woman who, taught me about the Kennedys and MLK and all of that stuff since I was very young. And so I've heard both sides. I was influenced by both sides. But this issue of equality is going to keep coming up until it's resolved. And this is when it's time to resolve it. This is it. We've all been talking, every astrologer, this Saturn Pluto conjunction, the abuse of power. Saturn's south node right now is sitting on our Pluto. The master. Our Saturn is intercepted in Libra, in the middle of Libra. Where you're the authority over, you just take over. And that Pluto retrograde there in the 2nd house is about, again, building the empire, the money, on the backs of other people. So, this is it. This is the time. And it's been, I'm shocked at the people that are quiet because they don't want to lose audience members. And another thing that's important to mention is not only do our dreams, when we see other people, it's like what we think about them. But not always. But in most instances, when you just see someone, it's like what you think of the person, even if it's someone that it doesn't have to be a celebrity. But also, like if someone is pulling cards and you don't hear the person say, this is guided by, Metatron or Michael or what have you, or pure love and light, make some statement like that, then when they pull those cards, they're pulling their opinion. So I just turn it off when we come to those parts, because I don't need to know anyone's opinion. And that is what happens. And a lot of times it's not like even a terrible opinion or anything. I just want to make sure that the guidance that I'm taking in is actually, coming from a place of love and not anyone's ego. And so, yeah, if a lot of us, just sit back and watch this go on, I'm not going to be one of those people. I always was taught to stand up for the people that are being trampled on. And I've watched, I don't know how many videos this week of the police brutality. I do find it, like I said in the last video, it's nice to see that some police officers are now acknowledging that there's an issue. Up to this point, I have never heard that before. It's just exasperating for me, like Facebook friends that I have that I know are police officers who sit silent when this kind of thing goes on. Or, oh, you don't know the whole story. Well, we actually do know this whole story. I saw another spiritual teacher who has really gone, like, shocking, saying that this was manufactured. Like, I can't remember the word, but let's just say manufactured. So maybe I don't want to use the same word. But, that this is something that was like a media hoax, and that they're trying to distract us. No, that this has been going on like since, and they're not even from our country. That's what really upset, like it's annoying, honestly. But it's like, no, this has been a problem here for a really, really long time. Maybe everyone else didn't know, but this has been going on for ages and ages. And it's time the abuse of power stops. This is when the abuse of power stops. I talked about when Saturn moved into Aquarius, and that's going to be 3 years, because he's coming out soon, and we'll go back through Capricorn. But from the time he entered Aquarius initially until he leaves is March 2023. So March 2020 went in initially. He'll leave March 2023. And those 3 years, he is going to be paving the way for Pluto, of society, restructuring society, and coming to a place that's more equality. And it could be that when he goes through there, it's more of the abuse of authority figures. Maybe that's what's going to happen. And then Pluto comes in 2023, and Shazam, things really take a turn. But I don't know. I really feel like this is a moment of change. And 26 countries, 380 cities in the United States, little towns, the little town that I grew up in. I've seen protests where in some towns where it's only white people, but they're still out there supporting. And it's like such a beautiful moment that all of these people have come together in love. And I just don't want to hear like the people that are saying, oh, all lives matter. Yeah, everybody knows white lives matter. That's why the whites aren't the ones that are being killed by authority figures all the time. This isn't like just some random thing. Now it's awesome that other states where things have been reported and then hushed up, now they're looking into those old cases. I've seen like 3 stories about that, of people dying in police custody just in the last few months that were ignored and swept under the rug. But now, because of what happened, they're going to be looked at. It's time for us to recognize, all of us whiteys, that those people have felt displaced and unequal. They live by a different set of rules and a different set of standards than we do. That's a fact. It has nothing to do with, socioeconomic status. It's just, I just saw a story of a white woman who had a black hair, a little poodle with the black hair. And she realized that she's being pulled over lately because they think that there's a black person in the car with her all the time. Like, all of a sudden she started getting pulled over, and then she realized, like, oh my gosh, it's my dog. That really does go on. I've been out with friends that have to leave way before the rest of us because he knew that he was going to get pulled over driving home. So he had to leave before everybody, really started having a good time, just to make his life a little easier so that when he got pulled over, it wouldn't be as much harassment, because once the clock hits this time, then for sure, he's going to be pulled over. Those are things that we don't even think about. It's like when I was just telling someone that, Heathrow at age 20 for me was my first experience outside the country. And the first time that I heard an announcement, like, if you see a bag, don't touch and I was oh, it's not safe here. That's the way they feel all the time in a lot of circumstances. We don't have any idea what that's like. We don't have any idea what it's like to be watching birds and have a woman say that, she's going to call the police and say that you're attacking her because she doesn't like something that you said, or to be sitting at Starbucks and have somebody call on you. And so, it's not that we need to feel guilty. It's just acknowledging it. Just acknowledging it. Yes, that's wrong. You deserve. Your families, a lot of their families have been here longer than a lot of our families have been here. And they just don't have the same privilege that we have. They don't. They had to make a lot more sacrifices and work a lot harder, especially the black males. So this is a time when, we're going to be seeing this. This is going to keep going. If this is what happened right after Saturn and Pluto came together, this isn't going to be a story that just goes away now. There's no way that this made it all the way around the world, And one of the other things that we're going to talk about is in relation to the authority figure here. The fact when we talk about hindsight is always 2020. That's going to be a lot of us going, because he's been talking about, breaking ancestral patterns and karmic cycles and changing our thinking for a long time now. I feel like I've been going over that. And so that's the part where it's 2020 looking back and looking at the past to see how it influenced what's happening today. But let's, when we're talking about what's going on in the United States, it's going to be a lot of looking back at what we allowed in 2020. And so now we've established that the president of our country is allowed to make offers to foreign intelligence for dirt on political, different politicians. So that means now going forward, no matter if it's the party that you like or not, that's okay. And then, so that, that's a precedent. That's what we call that. So that precedent has been set. And we also know now that it's okay for the military and the police to fire tear gas on peaceful protesters and rubber bullets on peaceful protesters. I know there's a lot of stories of protesters that have not been peaceful, but I have watched more than one video of what went on in Washington, D.C., and it's very easy to see in the crowd that they were not, like, one guy threw 2 water bottles and you hear another guy scream, like, stop throwing, telling him, to knock it off. But that isn't when the firing on them started at all. That firing on them was so that he could have his picture taken with the Bible in front of the church. This is what Metatron was talking about when we're seeing it right in front of our eyes. It's right there. But it's like, I don't. Because people really think that he's a Messiah. And there is no Messiah. No politician is going to save us from anything. That's never going to happen. The only time that, we even hear anything like that in the scriptures is the Antichrist. So, no, there's not going to be a politician that's going to come and save us. And certainly not in this astrology, not during a Pluto return. That isn't what it is. It's the opposite of that, actually. But, I said before, and I got attacked for it, I have compassion for the man. I see his natal chart, and I have compassion for him. And I also see in his natal chart that he's meant to be in office right now. So that's the way it is. And I don't know why that is, but it's right there. And, I wasn't, a fan of either candidate in the last election. I did my civic duty, held my nose, and I voted, but I wasn't thrilled. Let's say that. And of course, I would encourage everyone to vote, and I would encourage everyone to ask that the election process, Metatron is saying, be honored. And we need to ask for integrity wherever you are, because especially in the swing states, I had seen months ago. I didn't see which ones, but I just saw that in 4 states, I could see for sure, questionable practices. That's the wording that he's using. Questionable practices. And so, very important to vote. The only way that we can catch whether or not they're fiddling with the count is by the number of people that show up. The more people that show up, the more we'll be able to catch them and spot any anomalies. Okay, we need like volumes, and I believe just as a citizen that that's our duty. So I do vote, and I encourage everyone to vote. And I'm not saying that, I knew who was going to win, and I did not vote for him, but I wasn't like happy about that. I mean, about who I voted for. So in other words, I'm not for like either party. I used to be very political until I got into all of this, and then I recognized like what crazy illusion it all is, and that they're not fighting each other. They're on the same side. It's just that they say different things. I mean, of course, right now, I think they are fighting each other, but for the most part, I'm saying like he's showing me like percentage wise, they're like one big happy family kind of thing. It's just that they keep us busy fighting each other, and so we don't catch everything that's going on. And I'm not going to go, or am I? Okay. So I also wanted to just mention that we talked about like a lot of fake stories in the news, and just to keep watching out for that. That's still a great possibility with this astrology, is that we're going to be hearing, or he's saying seeing things that may or may not be true. And so very important that we are checking, Googling to see if something is actually factual. There's a lot of, let's say, icky things out there right now. I had Googled some things that somebody had told me about, and there was like nothing to them. Then it's good to recognize, of course, that the mainstream media can be leading us astray on issues. And someone had asked me which networks. Fox News was caught editing video of police brutality, and MSNBC ran a clip of a movie instead of a scene of an American city. It was from a movie. And I think that might have been a while ago, but I'm not really sure. But that was what I was referring to. Important to be careful, like what you're calling news. YouTube is not news. YouTube is opinions and views. It is not news. And if, we don't know the names of the people who are like running things, obviously. I just think that's so obvious that obviously we don't know who the players are. And I that's why I said to him, am I going to talk about that? Because I really worry about saying it. Not worry, but I don't know if I want to go there. When we talk about, the banks and the dirty money, it's important to look at who's putting the money into the banks, and who wants the narrative to be about the banks, and who is not having attention drawn to them. Very interesting. Just if you want to like watch the looming tower, the true story of the FBI and the CIA. I believe I watched on Hulu. I'm not sure where else it's available, but you'll see in the looming tower, and the family, the country that we are beholden to, a lot of our leaders are beholden to, and I don't know why that is, but I've spoken about this country several times on during the Emerald Fire meetings, because whenever, you trace the money back, when you look energetically, it does all go back there. And so there's something that I don't know what they've got on us or what hold it is that they have over us, but, there's a lot of things going on deep in the shadows, is what Metatron is saying. And he's talking about there's like the shadow, which is the illusion, which is just the stories that people tell, stories that makes their base feel good, their fans feel good. They feel like they're part of a movement, he's saying, but it's a movement based in fear and the other and having to keep people out. And he's saying the movement of the light is all inclusive. So that's how you can tell the difference. I want to just read this. He showed me this like just before I was going to make the video. This is a poem by Kathy L. Lathan, and it's called To This End, Mr. George Floyd. To this end I was born. From the pages of everlasting my life was torn. Now people can think of me and see the blessed power of love in unity. Amazing grace, how sweet to know that my life and death proved more than a show. In this togetherness and love have prevailed since my soul was freed from this earthen jail. I'm free, I'm free. I can breathe the air so sweet. I can breathe the air so sweet. Thank God I am free. The world beheld my providential destiny. From birth, the future written for me. Who could have known, who could see, who could have made a change when Jehovah holds the key? Alpha and Omega, from beginning to end, the whole world knew my name. In this God-given moment in time, my very existence was not for vain. To this end, I came into this world, a single purpose realized. Love, love, love must be the key. We are all God's creation. We are all equal in his eyes. And I think obviously, he made a lot of mistakes. And, he had more than one reason to be here, his children, for one. But let's make this moment last. Let's let this be a moment. Let's let this be the last time. I know there's still like horrific videos, but we need to pray for them as well, because not all of them are, like that. When I've just seen just the violence and the rage, and just like treating people like animals, just beating them with batons right now. It's not a very wise thing to be doing right now. So, and I say, if you see someone getting pulled over, I say keep your cameras handy. I've been pulled over, my ex-husband and I were, and our little blonde babies. I mean, we're the most wasp looking people on the planet. And, we got pulled over on the south side one night and really harassed. And of course I was like, give me the camcorder. I'm like reaching into the back seat, and my ex-husband's like, please sit down, be quiet. They really, really harassed us a lot for nothing. So they're unhappy, miserable people. Everything comes from pain. It isn't from anger. Everything, all of that stuff comes from pain. And it's the fear of the other. That's why it's typically the older generation that, and people that live in rural areas that haven't experienced other cultures and other places. They're the ones that have the hardest time with this and having to say all lives matter. Oh, do you want me? Yeah, okay. Yeah, and all lives do matter. But the point is that we sure don't act like Black Lives Matter in this country. At least not the police departments, for the most part. And that includes, the men of color in those departments. I expect to see a lot of policemen now showing me that they're honorable men and women. and that that they have some integrity, and that they're going to stand up and say something when something goes wrong, because this has been going on for a very, very long time. This isn't anything new. So what would you like me to end on? He's saying light a candle for the future. Light a candle for the future. I really think that it's going to be good. I really feel like this is going to be a big moment of change. And, and we need to, like with everything happening with should I add that as well? It could be that in this period from August to November, there could be a lot of things happening with the leader of this country as well. That seems to be coming up quite a bit lately. So I just thought that I would mention that. There may be things that come out that are shocking, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it would be for one person. But there just could be shocking news. Shocking news. He's saying that's my disclaimer. Shocking news. Okay. Yeah. So, okay, everybody. Hopefully next week I'll be back on. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to talk to you about. I want to do a healing video, meditation healing video for the solstice. I'll probably put it out on the solstice. I mean, the solstice is, they're not even 16 hours apart, the solstice and the new moon eclipse. So I'm going to do that. We're going to do some stuff with the ancestors, a lot of things that have been coming up in session. So when I know when that happens, that it would be good to do it for all of us. So, okay, everybody, I wish you all a very good week and happy solstice. If I don't see, I think I'll put it out on the day of the solstice. Maybe I'll get it uploaded that morning. So anyway, everybody, take care, and everything that you need to know about me is in the description box. I forgot to say that I added more times to my schedule.